Hello and welcome to ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Networks. I'm Gregor Sprague.
And then
joining me, Beatmaster here. Sorry. I got thrown off by the new doc. And joining us is one of the head honchos of Blazing Caribou Studios. It's Shawn Burns. Shawn, how you doing?
Hola. Hello, everybody. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And real quick, before we get into the show, you can find all of our info, including show notes, description link, or subscription links, by going to ElseNerds.com or going to the parent network for Galactic Network at gncasts.com. And also, this is your warning on ElseNerds. We tend to shoot our mouths off without thinking, so we will both spoil things and we will swear liberally. You have been warned. So, Shawn, you are actually our second guest ever. Got beat up by Jackie Hearn for that, who got the title of first. But you're kicking off this late replacing Corey in November thing. So how do you feel about that?
They are tremendously big shoes to fill, but I shall do my best to serve and protect the fine folks at ElseNerds.
Yeah. So we picked out some news stories that, like, we don't ever have a a bunch of news that we just can't talk about. But and this is one of those weeks where me and Beat are sitting there going, well, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. Maybe we should talk about this. And so we finally the 3 for our ElseNews. And the first one is that Dave Chappelle gets himself a 3 Netflix comedy special deal. The project will mark Chappelle's first stand-up television special in 12 years and marks another aggressive push by Netflix in the stand-up comedy arena. The deal calls for Chappelle and director Stan Lathan to produce an original special for Netflix, and then 2 other unreleased projects will come from Chappelle's vaults. One produced out of the Austin City Limits live venue, and the other a performance at the Hollywood Palladium. Now, this is pretty cool, and I didn't realize his last stand-up special was 12 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's that long ago, but I mean, Chappelle Show was the, mid-90s, I guess? So
I think mid-2000s.
After 9/11. Yeah, it was not after 9/11. He was the first comedian to break the tensions.
Yeah.
That was the thing he was picked for. He said himself in a Attack on the Block, or no, what's they made a concert at the Block in New York, and then he talked with the Roots drummer, and he said he was paid actually to exactly do that, ease up the tensions of 9/11.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. But he actually had this year, I would say, one of the performances on SNL too. Out of this season, I mean, you had, I don't think I've seen one slouch yet in performances. I mean, everyone's talking about the Gary Pumpkins from Tom Hanks when Tom Hanks hosted, but still, I mean, there hasn't been even the second half, like after Weekend Update, those seem to be strong. And I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed, I love the Dave Chappelle episode, and that made me go, yeah, we need to see more of him. And apparently Netflix had that same thought with bringing him here.
Yeah. How much of Dave Chappelle's stand-up have you seen, though, as compared to Dave Chappelle doing the skits?
Saw the last stand-up special, the one that was on Comedy Central, like right before he left, like he quit doing the Chappelle Show and all that. I think I saw that one, but again, and I mean, and it's one of those, I will say this, I'm not a big fan of Dave Chappelle. I have respect for the guy. I mean, I have respect for anyone who can go out there and who can, do these, go up there and do stand up and all that stuff. And it just seems like this is smart business on Netflix. In all complete honesty, I mean, killing it with the stand-up stuff. to be honest.
Yeah, they definitely
heavy hitter. Yeah.
Yeah, they've definitely been having a lot of stand-up specials. The thing I'm really hoping for is that this leads to something akin to the Chappelle Show coming back again, because what he did with the Chappelle Show is why I wanted to talk about this story. You know, the very first episode of the Chappelle Show features the skit with him being the blind white supremacist. And the shots he took at racism in that show, one of my favorite sketches he ever did was the race draft, when all the races were lined up like the NFL draft, and they were taking like, you know, Tiger Woods, and, you know, and it was hysterical, and he gave it to everybody equally, you know. And I think racial tensions are something that's going to be, you know, very strong in this country for the next couple years. And so I definitely think his brand of humor is something we're going to need. And hopefully this stand-up special leads to something like that, because that's really what I want to see out of this. Is I want to see more Chappelle Show stuff. I want to see more sketch comedy out of Dave Chappelle.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, they're Netflix recently, also I will add, because this is in the article, Netflix also gave or paid Chris Rock $40 million for 2 stand-up specials. So I'm interested to see how much they're paying Chappelle, essentially for 1 new stand-up special, and then 2 that he has from his vaults, as they're calling it, making him sound like the Walt Disney of stand-up comedy.
I'm rich, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think this is all really going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see this, because I mean it makes a lot more sense than, oh well, we'll give you the movie picture deals like we did with Adam Sandler, and I think Kevin James got that same deal. It's like, really,
Kevin Hart?
That? But yeah, so that's with that story. The next one, Justice League Dark. It's officially an R-rated DC animated movie. I think this is the 2nd or 3rd. I don't remember what Assault on Arkham was rated, but that seemed like that might have been rated R2. And so with this, we're getting a new trailer, and depicted in the trailer, the Justice League Dark finds the world under attack from supernatural forces that prompt the Justice League's Batman to seek aid from occult investigator John Constantine. Constantine forms a team of other supernatural heroes, Swamp Thing, Deadman, Zatanna, and Etrigan the Demon, to help save the world. And this is the one that was brought up because Matt Ryan is reprising his role as Constantine. And the voice cast that they actually have in here is pretty cool. Who's it? Enrico Carlatoni from Galaxy Quest and Veronica Mars will play Felix Faust. Alfred Molina, who's in the nerd culture most famously for playing Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2, will play Destiny. And Arrow's Roger C. Cross will play both Swamp Thing and John Stewart. This is really cool. I mean, been a big Constantine fan since the TV show. Was so upset that they canceled that. Really enjoying the comic books. Love the end of Justice League Dark with the New 52. But yeah, I don't know. Sean, what do you think of this?
Well, I did just check, and Assault on Arkham was PG-13, so this is only going to be their second foray into it following The Killing Joke. And, you know, I was one of those brave souls that went and saw The Killing Joke in theaters for the 2-night release, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. First of all, basically anything Batman I'm going to enjoy. That's just the way I am. And to hear Kevin Conroy back with Mark Hamill, that was my Batman growing up was the animated series in the mid 90s. That's what I relate to. So hearing those two together again was really fascinating. And they also did a really interesting thing before the movie. They showed a vignette about Mark Hamill. And so that goofy song that the Joker sings in The Killing Joke, you actually got to see Mark Hamill standing in front of the microphone singing that song, which was creepy as hell. And then at the end of the movie, they did like a little vignette on the score and the orchestra that did it and the conductor and everything. It was really neat. So I'm hoping that Justice League Dark gives us something like that as well, because I love DC's animated. I've watched every one of the animated movies that they've put out. Some are better than others, but definitely I find them to be enjoyable. And I think being able to see it in a theater and being able to get those other pieces that you might only get if you go out and buy the DVDs and read listen to the commentary or the other features and stuff like that on it. It was really interesting to get to see that in a theatrical setting. So I'm really hoping that that's what they start doing with these. I know critically, Killing Joke wasn't greatly received, but it did make them money. People did go out and see it in the movie theaters. So, they definitely have a really good cast for this. I mean, Rosario Dawson's playing Wonder Woman 2, Jerry O'Connell's doing Superman. So, even a few other names in there. It should be interesting. And I don't think that a lot of people who are like me, who are interested in superheroes but don't have the depth of comic book knowledge that others do, might be really interested in this Justice League Dark, because it's probably not something they're very familiar with. If you say things like Swamp Thing, Green Lantern, they're going to know what you're talking about. You say John Constantine, they might know what you're talking about, but then you get into some of the others like Zatanna, Jason Blood. They're not going to be people that the casual comic book fans are going to know. So hopefully there's going to be some intrigue for that too, that they're going to want to say, let me get in there and kind of check this out, because I've read a lot of the Justice League stuff, but I've never gotten into the Justice League Dark. But again, right in the front, there's Batman on the cover of this on IMDb. So I'm all in, because it's got the bat. So I'm good.
Yeah, this to me says it's more along the lines of how Batman Assault on Arkham was, where it wasn't a Batman movie at all. It was essentially a Suicide Squad movie.
Right.
But they used Batman for the marketing. That's what I think they're going to do with this. The only difference being Batman in here is voiced by Jason O'Mara as opposed to Kevin Conroy. So you got the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. playing Batman in this one, as opposed to, the one that I grew up with, especially, and you mentioned the original Batman animated series voice, doing the voice.
Yeah.
But I really think this is going to be cool. I do have that knowledge. It comes from just 5-6 years of reading comics, since the New 52 launched. And they did have, and Swamp Thing quickly became a favorite of mine, and it's mainly because of Charles Soule, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, writing Swamp Thing for DC before becoming exclusive to Marvel, and just loving how this really cool story that they told that I would love to see as an animated movie. I think this is what's going to springboard it, because Swamp Thing, yeah, some older people might know who Swamp Thing is, but I don't think the younger kids would know who Swamp Thing is.
Yeah.
And all that. So it's like you say Batman, okay, yeah, they're gonna know him. Constantine, okay, yeah, they might know him. But really outside of that, it's like, who's Deadman? Who's Zatanna? Who's, man? They might know some of these guys if they watched on Netflix the Justice League shows, but that's really it.
Yeah.
Just
expanding the movie, or expanding into the more mystical stuff or the DC animated projects.
I'm really excited too, but the thing is that it's R-rated. Doesn't make it adult. It could be exploitive in a way that we don't want to. If they go full Negan, I'm not interested in that type of R. So it has to fit the purpose of the story, and the whole thing is hanging in the balance of not riding the Deadpool R-rated wave. Because Killing Joke could have been not R-rated and leave out a part that made it R-rated that wouldn't have changed the story at all.
Right.
That's the thing that was criticized, and I respect that because I felt it was exploitive, not necessarily in a good way, but there it is. Sometimes superhero needs to have some boner time. And
no, yeah, definitely. And
I just have it for Matt Ryan. Because I hope... Go ahead.
Sorry. I do think that, one, Hangout Lag sucks, but I do think that it's interesting because it is R-rated for violence. So it will definitely be one of those... Yeah. It'll be one of those where I do think it is, because I always relate the animated movies on how they would be for families, because I know people who their kids really love comic book characters, and they're like 4 or 5 years old, and it's like, okay, go watch these movies, or go show them these movies, except for Assault on Arkham and The Killing Joke, and I want to say Justice League Dark might be one, but watch it first, sort of deal. Because the violence, I think, is a little bit easier to explain away than, Mommy, why is Constantine and Zatanna wrestling? Or, something like that. Like,
yeah.
Like they'd have to do.
Yeah, but I think there's a place for the adult stuff and for the kids stuff. I mean, it's like when Deadpool came out and, parents were complaining, oh, it's a superhero movie, it shouldn't be rated R. And it's like, yeah, but you've got so many others that aren't rated R, and if you're picking on this particular one, it's because you don't understand what Deadpool is. But even if even if you're just looking superficially and saying it's a superhero movie, therefore it should be for the kids, well, no, not necessarily. You can have the superhero movies that are for the kids, and we've got plenty of them. But we can also have these other ones that are grittier. Now, I don't want to take every superhero movie and make it like that so the kids don't have Guardians of the Galaxy and they don't have, Iron Man and things like that. I mean, I like the fact that we can have both. And I think that this is kind of the DC Animated's version of having both. Hopefully they're not going to turn around and say, okay, after Killing Joke made this much money and Justice League Dark makes this much, all of our animated features are going to be R going forward. That, I think, would be problematic. But just having one or two every now and then that you just have to look at them and say, well, no, these aren't for the kids. These are for the adults, It's like when we have game night at my house. I have a 6-year-old. We play lots of games that the 6-year-old can play with us, and then we play Cards Against Humanity when he goes to bed. It's like we don't do that in front of the 6-year-old, and it's the same way with this stuff. You have to realize that not everything in this world is going to be appropriate for your kids, and you have to take responsibility as a parent to know what is and what isn't. And this clearly probably isn't, at least not for that young. My 14-year-old, even though it's rated R, if it's rated R for violence and things like that, I'd probably be okay with him watching it. The 6-year-old, no. But I think that's, my right as a parent to try and make that decision.
No, yeah, definitely.
And the whole thing is demeaning to comic book readers that you say it's for kids, so it has to fit for them. No, superheroes have depth. They have adult themes in a format that looks for kids, but they tried, some artists at least, to set the bar high. So, yeah. But
let's not forget here that Glenn Rubenstein, former, the guy who created this show, essentially, pointed out a long time ago that the Alias series featured Jessica Jones getting essentially butt raped by a mind-controlled Luke Cage. Now you're going to tell me that book is for kids? Yeah, that's my argument. Is there are stories in there. The Killing Joke is another great story that adults will read, and I even had this at work where a kid just wrote, or like a grandma was shopping for her granddaughter's wish list, and she's like, comic books. I'm like, oh sweet, I can answer these questions. And I'm like, Smile, I've never heard of this book, Smile. And I'm like, but I had it wrong. I'm like, Smile. And I'm like, oh fuck, she wanted the Killing Joke. How old's your granddaughter? 6. I don't think this is the book she wants, but I don't know. And I'm like, wait, hold on, let me check one more spot. And thankfully she wasn't referring to Killing Joke, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think you could get that book for her, because there's a scene there where it's alluded that the bad guy, the guy on the cover, rapes a girl, and then and some other bad things like that. So yeah, I don't know if we're gonna call that a kid's book. That's the problem I have with people who put these generalizations on things.
Yeah.
I mean, Walking Dead would be a kid's TV show then.
Yeah. Which my 6-year-old does watch and loves, but that's my choice.
Yeah,
not every 6-year-old is going to be okay with that. Yes. Now, I will say my 6-year-old does not sit and watch that by himself. He watches it with me so that I can explain things. So,
yeah. One thing, a side note that's interesting, that they introduced Constantine again, because they did it with Keanu Reeves, Warner Brothers. They tried it again with NBC. They put it in CW, and now they're back in animated movies. So I hope they try to make him the Doctor Strange of DC, because I love the character, and he could be that character. Maybe a movie. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, it's definitely. I mean, with I was definitely one of the people who was like, all right, yes, they got the or the series of Constantine over on CW Seed. Maybe it'll get pulled in with the Arrowverse and he get his own spinoff. Damn it, he's English. He's going to get deported. We need to get him a show here in America. Come on.
Get him a work piece.
Yeah. But yeah, so our final story is that Legendary lands the film and television rights to Frank Herbert's Dune. And this, I'm assuming this is the first paragraph, but Legendary has definitely done the damn difficult in acquiring the rights to Frank Herbert's venerated science fiction classic Dune. The geek-centric movie studio behind blockbuster spectacles like Pacific Rim, Godzilla, and Warcraft has agreement with the Frank Herbert estate for the film and television motion picture rights to the beloved novel, which has earned a reputation as one of the most sought-after and difficult to acquire sci-fi properties of all time. This is freaking cool. I mean, I love seeing this to where I'll sum up this way. I'm very much in the same mind of Scott Johnson, where like, because I watched on last week's episode of Current Geek, where he was talking about in their forecast segment about educating the younger kids on the great stuff that happened in the past. I mean, so you don't get moments where, to use a horrible and cliched answer, you don't have kids going, oh, don't spoil the movie Titanic, I haven't seen the ending. That's fucking history, kid. Sort of deal. But it's where we don't have stuff like that, like where they forget about these great things, these great movies that happened, or books that happened 40, 50 years before they were even born. And so to see this, I'm excited for this, even though I haven't read the book.
Books.
Yeah.
Books. Yeah, sorry.
I think that's important. I've never read the books, and I haven't seen this movie in probably 20 years, but and here you go. I'm going to do a little shameless self-promotion here for my network. We've got a show with Lazy Caribou called Geek Cinema Society that goes back and looks at these influential geek movies. And one of the segments that they always talk about is, how did this movie influence other movies and other TV shows and things we're seeing today? And I think that's really an important part when we talk about these older books and older movies, because without Dune, do we have, the Dune books and stuff like that? I know the movie came after, but without the Dune books, do we have things like Star Wars? Do we have, without Star Trek, do we have Star Wars? Do we have, Firefly? Do we, so all of these things are connected and built on one another, even if not directly, at least they come from a similar pedigree. And so I think it's kind of important that, like you were saying, that the younger kids get to see these older works and be able to say, this is important because without X, we don't have Y. Without the Flintstones, we don't have the Simpsons, or Family Guy or any of those other things. And without the Simpsons and Family Guy, you don't have things like Archer and things like that. So I do agree with you that I think it's really important that kids understand, and not just kids, but younger adults and even adults who are getting into the geekier stuff later in life, because let's admit it, when I was 15 to 20, this stuff wasn't cool. You weren't allowed to be this nerdy, whereas now, as a 41-year-old, this stuff is all cool. So there's a lot of people my age who are now starting to go backwards and embrace this stuff. So having things like this, that you can take these older stories and modernize them for a newer audience and still give them the sense of, this is where this stuff came from originally, and these are what we owe our cultural zeitgeist to. I think you're right. It's really important.
Yeah.
Well, as a resident Dune book reader and movie watcher, I'm very excited, and it's Legendary that does it. That makes me think, okay, they're gonna go for the geeky way because they did Matrix, they did Warcraft, they did the Ninja movie and other stuff. They go full on in. If they're honing in to something, they don't care about its popularity. They go for convey the idea that the material had. And the book, the first one was mostly read by many friends I had, and then they gave up because they didn't know that the following up books made it a much bigger epic than it already was. And Star Wars comparison makes sense, I understand, but it's I would call it high concept science fiction, real hard sci-fi, because Frank Herbert did a lot of detailed work in how planetary systems have to be being provided with goods and other things, how lineage works over thousands of years, and got a perspective that none other material had. And there was a documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune, that was a Chilean crazy guy that made some great comics as well. And he tried to get Dali, Giger. He had, oh shit, I'm thinking out of other names, but he had the greatest artists of the time was ready to do. And he had made a book, this fake more, that had drawings, concepts, arts, and so on. And it made the runs in Hollywood because it didn't get filmed. That many people, including George Lucas, got a page of this and got the idea out of it, because when you see the documentary, you see almost every science fiction movie ripping off or paying homage to that book. And you can go there and get a taste for it, and then decide if you're into the Dune world, into not going reading 6 books that are this fake. So there's that. And there's the sci-fi miniseries that was done that had terrible CGI that threw me out, but when I rewatched it, it was okay, because it was more like the book. The David Lynch movie had some liberties, and they changed the whole narration. So if you're into going more visual, you don't like watching documentaries, then watch the miniseries from Dune. That's my suggestion.
Nice. Well, that is it for the news. And we are back, and it is time for Nerding Out, and this is the part where we have each picked a thing that we are going to talk about. And Shawn, I am very interested to hear, like, I didn't even think that when I saw in the doc that this was the band Kansas, but I'm like, wait, what is Kansas the Prelude? Implicit. I'm like, wait, what is this? So Shawn, tell me about the Prelude Implicit.
I chose this because, progressive rock is the nerdy rock anyway. So, and if you're younger and you're listening to this and you listen to progressive rock right now, Kansas is one of the legacy bands of progressive rock. Like, you would know them from Dust in the Wind, and you would know them from Carry On Wayward Son, especially if you watch Supernatural. But Kansas had so much more. And if you go back to like some of their earlier albums, they had really layered symphonic type rock music. And this is a band that came out originally. Their first album, I think, was 1974. Their lead singer, Steve Walsh, retired about 2 years ago. He had been having vocal problems for a while, and he decided to retire. They replaced him with a new singer and put out a new album, which is their first album in something like 15 or 16 years. And it is really wonderful. They brought back the more in-depth violin that they used to have back when Robbie Steinhardt was in the band. They've brought back, they've got a lot of hard rock, pieces in there. They've got the orchestral pieces in there. This sounds like a Kansas album from the late 70s, probably, which is when they were in their heyday. That was Left Overture with Carry On Wayward Son and Point of No Return with Dust in the Wind. I mean, this was their time, for that band. And this album really does a fantastic job of hearkening back to that. And it's a beautiful album to listen to with your headphones on and just absorb all of the music, all of the background music, the orchestrations, the layering of the different keyboard lines that they're doing. So if you're into progressive rock, you're into orchestral rock or anything, go and check this out. And I would even say go further back and check out a lot of Kansas's old stuff because, this is one of my favorite bands. I've seen them live 10 times. So I just haven't seen the new lineup yet. I'm just waiting. So that'll probably be my 11th and maybe final time of getting to see them. But they were one of the first concerts I went to as a teenager, even though I was born about 10 years too late for their heyday of music and everything. But growing up, I shared a room with my brother who was 10 years older than me. So it was listen to Kansas Sticks, Foreigner, Queen, or go to sleep really fast, because when we went to bed, that's what was playing. But yeah, I mean, I just think overall it's a great album. The new lead singer sounds enough like their old lead singer that it's not jarring, but it's not, like when I listen to the New Journey stuff, I almost have a little bit of trouble because the guy sounds so much like Steve Perry. With this, the guy doesn't sound exactly like Steve Walsh, but he's got the same like vocal range and things. So they're able to pull off a lot of the same types of songs. So I think the guy was a really good choice for it. And, I can't wait to hopefully this summer they'll come back around here. So.
No, yeah, that's cool. I want to say this is the first music thing we had on here. So
about time.
Oh,
but
awesome.
It's not, yeah. I could be wrong. Beat will probably yell at me later. Like,
I know.
Dude, we covered it a while back ago.
I was ready to wait.
But no, yeah, Kansas. Yeah. Yeah, and you beat Christy Cates to this too. I mean, which is great because we have Christy coming on in a couple weeks. So
cool.
But yeah, so no, that's really cool. I have the respect for Kansas because this goes, like you were 10 years later. I was 20 or so years later. I will say that as to not make you feel incredibly old.
I have kids that make me feel incredibly old. I'm good.
But it's one of those things that like my uncle grew up listening to, or he was listening to that because that was the rock radio station here in Michigan that played, them like played all the bands you just said there, plus Metallica, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, and all that stuff, and actually still do play all those guys. And I'm like, at a certain point, they're gonna have to change their name to Classic Rock.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of sad though when some of the stuff that you grew up listening to suddenly shows up on the Classic Rock channel, like all of a sudden, like not so much early U2, but like U2 Joshua Tree starts getting played there, and you're like, oh no, that's not right.
But I think we have to thank Supernatural because there's so many generations that were exposed to it because of
yeah.
And even Rock Band. I mean, Rock Band and Guitar Hero, they had they had a lot of these. That's where I can't hear like stuff from like Beastie Boys or the White Stripes without thinking of the Guitar Hero progressions.
Mm.
And granted, I only did it on medium because it was 4 buttons, didn't have to get the 5th one involved. But it's just sitting there going, it's like 7 Nation Army on that and just doing pretty good. Because I wasn't just going for punishments. Like, let's do expert with Dragon Force. Like, no, fuck that.
Yeah, that was an interesting game from a musical standpoint because like playing it with my kids, all of a sudden I've got my kids listening to Squeeze because Cool for Cats is on there. But at the same time, I like never knew who Modest Mouse was until I started playing those. And I thought, wow, these guys are pretty good. And, Paramore and some of those other bands I kind of discovered by being an older person playing with their kids. So that was kind of a cool game that they had there.
No, yeah, definitely. So I would do mine, and then Beat has a mini one because mine's sort of related because of the music that they have on here, and mine is the series premiere of the Grand Tour. This is Amazon's original show that is starring the old Top Gear guys, Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond, and the first episode, holy crap. And I do echo some of the things that Tom Merritt may have said on Cord Killers, this because I watched that before coming on here. Like, yeah, the opening cinematic was a little bit like a middle finger to the BBC, but oh well, get over it. There was surprisingly a lot of comedy. Well, not surprisingly, but there was more late night talk show comedy in here than there was with the old stuff. So they had like the 2 bits. The first one, as they're in their new roving studio, and they're like, and they filmed the first episode out in California, and they're like, all right, so here, what do you call that thing that you shift, in a manual car? And so we're like, a lever. It's like a stick. No, that's not a stick. This is a stick. And he holds up a stick, and it's used. You can't use it to shift a car. You could use it to point to things. Like, for instance, what do you call this? And it's a picture of what we call a hood. They're like, hood. And some of them are catching on, like, bonnet. It's like, no, it's a bonnet. Like, and someone else, bonnets are what you put on your head. Words can have 2 meanings. They can have multiple meanings. And it's great stuff. Like, I always love doing that, like, hearing that, like, oh, how we're wrong. It's not like we're like, oh, we're just Americans. Like, no, we're wrong in how we say our things. Or for
like the Royal Air Force skit.
Yeah. But the one thing I will say that I will honestly recommend is watching this with the Amazon X-Ray, because you get the best experience with that. You get the stats, like the extra stats on your, like, on the car that they're talking about. Like this one, the first episode's called The Holy Trinity, and they have the extra stats on the McLaren P1 and the Ferrari LaFerrari, and all these cars. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's great, because it makes it to where they don't have to sit there and explain every single fact. It's like, oh, because it would get a little boring at the same time, like, and it goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and stuff like that. It's just stuff that they can throw in. And also when they have these big adventures, or like the opening where they show off all these cars, including cars that were used in the Fast and Furious franchise and stuff like that. And also pointed out that they did some corrections to the firing resume of Richard Hammond and James May, because they had also been fired from other places too. But I was surprised to hear that Jeremy Clarkson had never been fired. I'm like, wait, really? Come on. He had to have been fired at some point. I'm like, nope. Surprisingly, this is true. I'm like, sweet. I enjoyed the bits that they had with these celebrities, with Jeremy Renner, Armie Hammer, and Carol Vorderman. I couldn't think of her first name. I sort of want to see them actually do the game thing, and not this just be a recurring bit throughout the whole throughout the whole thing, just because I don't think that would really. I think that would get old really quick. And I could see them like this. It's for the most part, it is the old Top Gear. It is what I think what a lot of people were missing from the Matt LeBlanc and Chris Harris hosted Top Gear. But I do think they have some room to grow. I love their quote unquote new Stig, who is I can't think of his actual name. It's Mike something. He NASCAR driver who they just call the American, and I'm like, this is great. This is just awesome. Him going, this is communist. I don't like this. This is just all these real Southern sayings, and I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. But yeah, I truly enjoyed the show. I watched it on Friday and Saturday. Like I rewatched it again just because, and so great to see these guys back.
And
so
it's in the UHD. So if you're on Amazon, you get a brilliant quality. If you have such a TV, it's one thing to watch out for.
Yeah, that's if you do have the 4K ultra high definition, check it out on there because the cars look so pretty. Jeremy Clarkson, as much as you could, he looks as good as you can make.
A shaved monkey in a suit, or what did they call him?
A shaved orangutan in a suit. But yeah, so I mean that is my recommendation. We will have links to both the Kansas where to pick up the album and the Grand Tour in our show doc. Beat, you got a mini nerding out for us.
Yeah, because you talked about the Rock Band and Kansas. There's a game out now or is out for some years now. There's Rocksmith, where you get a cable that you can check into a real guitar or bass and play along and learn the basics, learn the higher scales, and you got Muse and other Kansas stuff that blows your brain. So that's something that when you're a gamer and a musician and want to combine both, there you go. That's my mini suggestion, my mini nerding out.
Have you used that, Beat? Because I've looked at it a lot of times, and it really does work.
I bought it for the Xbox in the first edition, then 2014 on Steam. And they have the sales tomorrow. The 23rd start is autumn Steam sale. So you could pick it up for various DLCs to go along with. And when you're not sure, you can watch on Twitch. They have the Ubisoft Studios San Francisco. They do a live stream, which each DLC they come out, they play it with great musicians and developers that do it. And so you get a taste of it. If you're not sure, just watch the stream. You will fall in love with it.
Excellent.
Nice. That was one that I thought, I'm like, wait, that still is a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Like I honestly thought that because I had heard about it a while back ago with when Rock Band and Guitar Hero were so huge.
I recommended it to Ayaz back in 2012 when I was at the Twitter, and he fell for it as well.
Yeah. And then it's like I saw it at work about a month ago, like right when I started working, someone asked me, I'm like, does that thing still exist? Like Rocksmith, why? I thought that flopped, but no. I mean, if it's still doing well, hey, great. Because that's the one thing that I always, with playing Rock Band at my church when I was in the youth room, it was one thing to see that you had the actual musicians had to readjust themselves to playing, especially if we're doing like a head-to-head thing, and they're like, "Wait, hold up." Like because they're wanting to move their hands down the neck. I'm just sitting there, just hitting all the notes and stuff, and just royally messing them up. Like, come on, man, knock it off. I'm like, learn quicker.
Yeah, not for Shawn. The cable itself is usable for any audio app you have, so you could plug it in. It's like $40 or something like that. Then you have direct audio card integrated in it.
Cool.
Nice. All right, that is nerding out. All right, and we are back, and it is our discussion topic, and we are talking the Shawn actually cheated a little bit and had two nerding outs, which is cool. It's cool. I've many times come in with like 50,000 things and then narrow it down to like 2 or 3. And we actually did this last year with our guests where we talked about the DC TV shows. And I think what better time to do this than the week before the crossover event. And so first off, let's set this up. Shawn, are you watching all the DC TV shows, or are you like me and not watching Gotham?
Okay, so I am all caught up on Legends and Flash and Arrow. I'm a couple episodes behind Supergirl, and I stopped watching Gotham about halfway through last season, but I went back and finished it on Netflix, and I have everything from this season on my DVR, so I will be caught up on Gotham by Christmas. So, yes and no.
It gets better.
No,
it's worth it. That's one thing I spoke so bad about it, but yes, they recuperate.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That show, it's like some shows are hit or miss. That one, it's like episode by episode, it's hit or miss with Gotham. Either some episodes are really good, or some episodes just you watch it and you go, that didn't do anything to advance anything, So I'll tell you, the stuff on CW, if you had told me even 3 years ago that I would be watching something on CW every night of the week, because I also love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. If you were to tell me that I was going to be watching something on CW every night, I would have told you were smoking crack, because I'm not a 19-year-old girl. But man, they have been just knocking it out of the park. And for me, it's everything starts with Legends. I love that show. The concepts of it, the humor in it. One of my favorite characters of all time is Jonah Hex, and seeing him pop up a couple times on that show has been a lot of fun, even though this last time they took some real liberties with his backstory, but I guess we don't need to go there, but yeah, that's where I am on the DC stuff. I watch it all basically, and love it to varying degrees. So
no, yeah, that's cool, because I fell out and I tried the first episode of season 2 of Gotham, going because Dave was like, "Oh my gosh, you gotta like the show. I think you really like it." And Dave knows my sensibilities, knows how I am. And so I trusted him, and I'm like, "All right, watch it." And I'm like, "Yeah, not sold." And it's bad because I like the actors. I like the people involved in the show. Yeah. It's a little weird that the Cameron Monaghan, the actor who plays Jerome, that was my first encounter with him. I hadn't seen Shameless until after Gotham, and I'm like, wait, isn't that the dude who plays the like Jerome? And he's still doing double duty. And I'm like, holy crap, dude! How are you doing double duty on Shameless and Gotham? How busy are you?
Everything became instantly better when Morena Baccarin showed up. She's the goddess.
Well, yeah, but even that didn't save it for me.
Yes, it did. Fuck you. It did.
For me, not for you. For me, it didn't save it.
Wait, how is Deadpool's girlfriend the medical examiner in Gotham? That doesn't make any sense.
Because she's the wife of Jim Gordon.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, like it is like you said. Like if you would have said, like same thing with me. If you would have said, "Hey, you're going to be watching, something from the CW every single week, and it's not going to be girly," because I would have been like, "Wait, really? Are you sure about that?" But
remember some years back when I asked you, the CW is doing the stuff right. You think it's going to be more exciting and stuff like that. CW, are you fucking kidding me? No way.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
because
I was watching Supernatural, so yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of it is like even now, like I'm watching the let me see, I'm watching the DC stuff, the superhero shows, plus Jane the Virgin, No Tomorrow, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and then I think that's it out of the shows.
Is Frequency on there?
Yeah, Frequency's on there, but I'm like, the movie was okay.
Yeah.
Such a loose concept for a show that I don't see, like, it could be popular right now, but I don't see longevity out of that show.
I heard good.
Yeah, that's one.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's one I'm gonna wait till it's on Netflix to binge because I'm too unsure of where that show is going. So
The 100 is on the CW, isn't it?
Yeah, but the 100 is on usually during the summer. Like
I heard some people I trust also talking good stuff about it. They think there's the best show on CW even.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about the 100.
Yeah. Right now it's like, so we're in the middle of the DC superheroes. You know, they're the Arrowverse of shows, and I'm slowly starting to see how we're leading up to the crossover, which is cool. Actually, Shawn, I will ask you this question though: how do you feel knowing that your Thursdays will be freed up once Legends of Tomorrow moves over to Tuesday?
Oh, well, I didn't know that was happening, so
because it's happening because the show No Tomorrow, which is pretty clever. If you've seen the show Gallivant, the lead in there is in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's clever. It's got a good premise. It's quirky like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but not Crazy Ex-Girlfriend at the same time. I mean, there's
that's a different level.
Yeah. But I guess the viewers aren't there for the show, so it's probably looking like it's not going to get renewed. So so Legends is going to get moved over, but then it's only like that. From what the article I read, it's not going to be for very long, sort of thing. Because I mean, we got iZombie coming in.
Yeah, I don't like them moving shows around, I think, but here's the other part of that. In this DVRs, how many of these shows are we really watching live? Because I'll be honest, I don't watch any of the DC superhero shows live. I don't, like, even on Sunday nights when I watch Walking Dead, I technically don't watch it live because I wait till about 9 to start the recording so I can skip the commercials. You know, so I don't do live television anymore unless it's sports or news. It's about the only thing I watch live. So it's really not going to affect me too much that it moves to Tuesday. Hopefully it doesn't have a negative impact on the audience is the only thing I would worry about. But I think Legends is pretty solid right now. So I don't think, like, their numbers are good for the CW. They're in line with the other superhero shows. So, and right now that's where CW is making its bread and butter. So I don't really like worry about it, you know, this being the kiss of death or something being moved around like other shows I would worry about. But, you know, I think it's fine. And maybe it picks up Tuesday nights, Flash. So maybe it picks up some of the people who were watching Flash and haven't watched Legends and brings them back over when it moves to Thursdays again. But I mean, I think the setup right now of having one a night really is kind of, because it spreads them out without overdoing it, you know?
Yeah. And it does make sense because even, like, honestly, what I would love to see is you pick up, since iZombie is technically a comic book TV show, it's not in that same universe. I would love to see a full season order of both Legends and iZombie, and then you throw iZombie in on that Friday night slot, especially with Vampire Diaries getting canceled.
Right, yeah, because that one's going off,
yeah. And, like, because this is the thing, is, like, I heard with, because we sometimes do the fall TV previews, and we'll be like, all right, CW has a lot of shows that have both gotten renewed and have gotten and they're new. How they only know they have so much time in a week, right? Like, are they going to do Saturdays? How are they going to do all these shows? But yeah, so getting to the article that will be in there, this is the beat showing right now from Collider. We have the 4-night crossover event to happen next week.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah, there is some spoiler warnings here in that article. What I will say is I'm excited for this, and what I want this to do, which I don't think is going to happen, is to link Supergirl in better with the rest of the Arrowverse. I mean, I've seen reports that I think were more rumors that Martin Stein will be in, or will be staying over in with Supergirl for a little bit and stuff like that after this. But I just want to see like this more fluidity to where we get this like truer to comic books where, oh well, we need Vibe over on Supergirl. Okay, well there it is. There you go. Or we need these minor little crossovers that they can do, like they did with Felicity after Flashpoint and all that, because it would make sense. It would make more sense, especially since you did all this advertising of Supergirl being on the CW, doing the Superhero Fight Club 2.0, and yet she's in her own little bubble.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah. It would be nice to see them be able to marry everything together. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but it would be nice to have them all on the same universe. Although Flash has already shown up on Supergirl, so it's already been proven that he can bounce back and forth between them. So, I guess there's still ways to play with that. I mean, if they needed Vibe on Supergirl, they could always just, have Barry Allen run him over there. So I guess there's ways around it, but yeah, it would be better to have it more seamless. I don't know. I'm this because this harkens back to a time when we had 5-part miniseries television. Like if you remember, maybe not, you guys might be a little bit too young to quite remember, but the show V in the 80s, when it first started, was a 5-part miniseries, which then became a full-blown television show and then ended with another 5-part miniseries. You had the North and the South, you had Shogun, you had all these miniseries television that came out, and that's essentially what we're getting out of this is one long 5-hour story, because I guess it's in 5 parts. It's going to loop back around to one of them, is my understanding of it. I guess it starts on Flash and ends on Flash, is the way that I understand it. So it's that's basically what we're getting back to is mini-series television with this. So I'm kind of excited to see if this kind of thing is successful, how much more of it we'll get from these shows that have these shared universes like that.
I think there's a logistical question that is in the room, because if you have them crossing over each time, they want to have their pay cut. So that could be limiting to the amount of episodes they can do that, as you say.
But
I'm all in, of course.
But to that point, you've already seen Wentworth Miller. I'm blanking on the actor who plays Martin Stein.
Victor
Garber. Who else? John Barrowman. Like, you've seen all these people. Damien Dark. I can't think of his name either. Neil. Oh God. Fuck. Guy who plays Damien Dark. Yeah, Neil McDonough. They're all on contracts for the Arrowverse,
right?
Not for one show. So that's what I think we're going to see more of.
That we already have in Legends, so he shows up all the time, Damien Dark. So
yeah, but his contract is. But their contracts are more for in this universe. It's more just a general contract for these shows.
We assume the contracts, how they are done, that's a thing for Hollywood. So we wouldn't know exactly what is done. But how I'm a bad person when I pity Brandon Ralph, seeing all the other people getting the Superman role, because he was pretty good. I'm not a fan of the movie completely, but it was better than we had afterwards.
I like the guy that they had for that they got for Superman on Supergirl. I would love I know it's not gonna happen, but I would love for like next year's crossover for them to have a moment, just this little tongue-in-cheek moment of the Atom meeting Superman. And be like,
or
you look
nice suit.
Or on Earth, what's our number? This dimension. It's Earth 200. I think that our universe has a definite number in one of the comics, but saying, imagine they go there for a moment.
I think it's Earth 9.
And then we see him as Superman. Just at the moment, because he hasn't his powers. He has to have a suit and that thing, and he meets a version of himself that is Superman. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, does that make Ray Palmer very happy, or does that throw him into a horrible, unfixable depression on Legends to see that?
I don't know, because right now with how we have him in Legends, he's still trying to get over the fact that they had to blow up his suit.
Yeah. Now, I will say right from the start, seeing Brandon Routh as Ray Palmer in the Atom, just the character itself just smacked of Superman, the innocence, the Boy Scout, so it was, I've always seen a little bit of Superman in this character of Ray Palmer. So seeing him actually do Superman kind of in a wink and a nod thing, I think would actually be really cool.
No, yeah, definitely. And like I'm looking through on the Collider article, and I think it starts with Supergirl, because we mentioned earlier. I think it's just 4 parts, so it's just the week starting with Supergirl, ending with Legends. But the other thing I noticed that I loved is some promo work for each of the posters, where you see an image in the background. I think was the Hall of Justice, if my nerd knowledge is correct there. Which was pretty cool. But then I would also say, to back up why I want Supergirl more involved with Flash and Arrow and Legends, is look back at the Flash and Supergirl crossover. How lighthearted that show was. That episode was in particular. I mean, we were missing music numbers for it to be an episode of Glee.
And that's coming, and I'm ready for it, man.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that, to see it, because of the fact that you have Supergirl, very lighthearted character. You have the Flash, lighthearted character, and Corey's even said it, you got shows like Arrow where it's super dark, super gritty, and which is fine and good, and Legends is all over the place, which is good, because they can be whatever they want to be that week. And then you have the Flash, which is a little bit more lighthearted, but has been going darker with its stories. So it's like we get Supergirl in here, and we have lightheartedness again. Like, that's why I want to see this actually integrated here.
But won't be Arrow feeling like Hawkeye? All these people flying around, having powers, and see, I got an arrow. Okay, yeah, wait here. It could be a mismatch, but he showed how he can keep up with the Flash and the other people. So I was just kidding about that. But let me add fuel to the fire. How would you rank the shows? Which one from best to worst, or not the best?
Just the 4 CW shows, or are we adding Gotham too?
No.
Well, okay.
Just the straight up 4th.
Yes.
The Gotham one's at the bottom for me, so that's how
Yeah,
I
it would-
rank is.
The color.
Okay. For me personally, it's Legends of Tomorrow's at the top, Flash is second, Arrow's third, and Supergirl's fourth. But I'll be honest, the difference between first and fourth isn't that much. Well, all right, maybe I should say the difference between second and fourth isn't that much for me. Legends is a clear first for me. The other three are somewhat interchangeable, but right now I feel like it would be Flash, Arrow, and then Supergirl.
Same here.
Yeah, I think I'd have to differ on that. I would probably put with all mine being really really close together. You would have. I'd probably go Flash, then Legends, then Supergirl, then Arrow. For me, just because, but again, it's all really close. Like if this was the Olympics, it would be a 4-way tie for first.
Yeah, it's kind of like great pizza, really great pizza, kind of great pizza. It's all great pizza, but. So nobody's really going to argue which one's going to be first, second, or third. We can put them in any order, and the rest of us are probably going to sit there and go, "Yeah, okay, I'll give you that." But we all have our own personal taste.
Gotham for me is cheese pizza.
Oh, Gotham's a salad.
Domino's. No, but the thing is, Legends really had the highest peak. They were the innocent show, and they had that with the Flash. Before it was clear Flash for a long time, and suddenly Arrow got a little bit lighthearted and on the better side. No Lara, no Lance, no Lara, and the Flash with the Flashpoint. I hope they can come back from that because it was too early.
Yeah,
my opinion, but that's just me.
It was too early and it was too small. I mean, Flashpoint should have been the crossover, this big crossover event where we get, maybe not these characters as themselves as we know them on the TV shows, but, the alternate, this Flashpoint universe version of themselves, where we have, hell, they've been putting Arrow in the Batman version all this time, where we don't have an Oliver Queen. We have Robert Queen as Green Arrow because his son died when they were stranded on the island for a 5-year journey. I could easily see something like that as opposed to sorry, I had another thought. I'm like, no, that's too much like Batman. Like we're just basically making Green Arrow Batman here.
Well, and here's the thing I think too with Legends that kind of separates them is they can be more lighthearted, but they have a story that lends itself to characters coming in and out of it and being like to be able to change up the team each year. And they have, with the time travel, they have the best ability to integrate other DC characters like Jonah Hex, like the Justice Society of America. We're getting a much broader, viewpoint because they can travel around. Like it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for them to show up in Gotham in one episode. Now, whether or not they come across Batman or not, but Arrow takes place in its own city. Supergirl takes place in its own city. Flash takes place in its own city. Legends can go wherever, whenever, and whoever they want. So that to me just gives it a much bigger, more epic, more throw caution to the wind and let's have some fun with it kind of stuff to it.
Yeah.
So that
they got rid of the lame ass villain they had in the first season. That was really. I even forgot his name. It's that much out of my memory, but he was the weak point of the show.
Rip Hunter, the captain?
No, the villain.
Oh, right.
Randall Savage.
Randall Savage.
I'm only thinking of his. Yeah.
And that
Vandal. That was.
You saw the going up in quality and everything. Not that he's a bad actor. He got what he was handed scripts, but yeah. And you think, I say so, we're going to see Crisis on Infinite Earth first on CW, then we will see it on the big screen.
I could see it happening that way. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I alluded with the imagery when Superman holded Supergirl in the DOA.
Yeah. In episode 2 of Supergirl for the second season. But no, CW's actually started to nail that. Like Walking Dead, I think, is one of the first that I've seen where they would do these moments where it's like, all right, we just took this out of the panel or the cover from the comic book and made it real life. But DC Comics and the CW have more iconic imagery that they could pull from. Like, I'm honestly waiting for, and wouldn't have been surprised if we saw Tyler Hoechling's Superman like holding a car, slamming it on the thing for a moment, or some clever way of doing that to pay homage to Action Comics #1.
Yeah. Well, they did in the episode of Supergirl that Linda Carter showed up at. You had Supergirl doing that little spin move that was very reminiscent of how Linda Carter changed into Wonder Woman. And then they had the great line at the end when Supergirl is gushing over being on Air Force One, and Linda Carter looks at her and says, "You should see my other plane." And it's just so they've got these great, this great source material to pull from in those wink and a nod moments, and you're right, the visuals is something that they could easily do that with too.
Dean Cain, I wouldn't say more because no one's so much more, but
hey, man, yeah. Well, no, even then, on both sides of her Earth parents, I mean, you have Dean Cain, who played Superman in The Adventures of Lois and Clark, and then you had, I'm blanking on her name, but she played Supergirl. Helen Slater, I think.
Helen Slater, yep.
Yeah. See, I do good, not on Trivia Geeks. Trivia Geeks, I can't do anything.
Why do you think I host? I've been a contestant on my own show twice and have lost both times.
Well, that just makes you like Thomas Lennon at midnight. I mean, you can't win
exactly.
on your own show.
No, it would look rigged. So now in the Collider article, the first picture under Legends of Tomorrow, so it's like towards the bottom of the article, it's showing a bunch of them. Who is that between Supergirl and Arrow? Standing back a little ways. Because in the back row is Vixen and Steel, and I see Arrow's partner there, and I see Firestorm, Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl. But am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And does somebody have their suit back? Because that could be a big spoiler right there.
Are you talking that photo there that Beat has pulled up?
Let me take a look here. Yes.
Yeah, that is Ray Palmer's Atom, if that's what you're thinking. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense because they gave Steel his suit, or Captain Steel or Commander Steel, whatever they're calling him, in last episode. So I'd imagine this episode we're going to see him working on the suit.
See, but didn't Rory give him Captain Cold's gun?
Yeah, which he used to. I could see. Okay, so if you want to do that, I could see him taking parts from that and integrating it into the suit.
See, I thought he was going to become more of Rory's sidekick or partner or whatever. So. Okay, I could see that too. I wasn't expecting to see the Atom suit back, and especially not in a publicity photo. I would have thought that would have been a bigger reveal since it's been such a big part of the storyline so far this season. So
yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, the last photo there of Commander Steel's photo, it looks a little bit like it's just like baseball padding.
Yeah.
like it's catcher's equipment.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah, it still looks good, but it's just like, wait, is he going to stand behind a batter here? Yeah, that photo that Beat pulled up.
Well, it's funny too because like his superpower is turning steel, so covering him up doesn't. I mean, why do you need armor? I mean, I get the concept of wanting the super suit and everything, but it just kind of seems a little silly to me.
I could see it from a production standpoint. I mean, forget the fact that if he's shot with dwarf star alloy bullet, it'll penetrate him. But I could see that from a CGI standpoint of, oh, it's easier to just CGI here and then parts of the arm as opposed to
okay, devil's advocate or Steel's advocate here. It could be that he doesn't want to rip his shirts all the time and other clothes that he has over his metal skin, so it lasts as long.
That's what he says.
Yeah.
But I look at it from the production house standpoint of, we're losing our budget.
Well, while we're taking apart comic heroes, superheroes, let me tell you about time.
Oh no, trust me, I will do it for every show. I will say this right now, and maybe consider. I don't think it's considered a spoiler, but Supergirl, its budget has been good enough to where this past episode was the first time I'm like, that looks fake. Where the first season, for every single episode, there was something it seems like that I could pick out.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, that seems fake. That seems fake. That seems fake. Come on.
Very last scene worried me a little bit about where we're going with that, but yeah, why not introduce new characters?
Yeah. But yeah, so I think we've covered everything. We've discussed enough on this point here. So the only other thing to be said is let's have a little chitty chat here with Shawn, because he is the commander-in-chief, El Jefe of Blazing Caribou Studios. I don't know what your official title is, so I just gave you 2. There you go.
Sure. I prefer Lord High Commander, but I can't get anybody to call me that, so whatever.
All right. Well, the Lord High Commander of Blazing Caribou Studios. I think you got to fight Kari on that one, but
no, she doesn't like that title.
So tell everyone what Blazing Caribou Studios are.
We are a completely volunteer-run podcast studio that myself and my partner Carrie founded almost a year ago now, and we are currently producing 8 different shows with about 10 others in pre-production. B just brought up our show list there. Let's see, the MMA show is actually gone away. They decided to pull the plug on that, and a few of those shows are in pre-production, like Sketch and Comedy, Feast on History, and Exploring the X-Files, a Galactic Netcast show, is actually being retooled to come back here very shortly. So unfortunately, my son Kevin had to step away from that project due to graduating and going to college and everything, which is why it's been on hiatus for so long. But one of our people over at Blazing Caribou has decided to step in and help me with that. So we're actually bringing Exploring the X-Files back as well. And again, it's all volunteer run. We've got about 40 people who work for us over at the network, who are writers, who are art folks, who are web designers, and we could always use more. We've got more shows coming up. If you are ever interested in doing your own podcast, but you don't know how to get started, go over to blazingcariboustudios.com, drop us a line. We can help train you how to do a podcast while you kind of do some projects for us and things like that. It's kind of a neat, almost intern-like process that we've got going on. And like I said, everybody's volunteer. We make enough money to pay the bills, and that's about it right now. So we're having fun. It's a great community, and I gotta stop for just a second and say that the people who have volunteered for us so far and who are doing these shows, from art to post-production to hosting to writing, they're just an amazing group, and we would not be able to do what we're doing without the number of volunteers that we have there. It's just, one show is damn near impossible. 18 is like, just jump off a bridge or not have a life, because you're not going to do 18 podcasts a week. So that's a little bit about us. We like to have fun, so if you're ever interested in doing something like that, but you don't want to be on the microphone but you want to be part of it. Oh my God, look at that beard. That doesn't look like that anymore. If you're interested in that sort of stuff, just drop us a line and we'd love to talk to you and get you involved as well. So.
No, yeah, definitely. And you can find him You can find them all at blazingcariboustudios.com.
Right.
Yep. But yeah, Shawn, I want to thank you for coming on and rocking out as a guest here. And it was also excited to see that you said that, like, I think everyone over at Blazing Caribou wants to guest over here. I'm like,
yeah. I put it in the chat room, and I think probably like 8 or 9 people with it. And that's, like almost everybody who's a host on some show is like, sure, I'll go. So you've got you've got a plethora to choose from over there. So.
They have clearly not saw our show before, so we're good there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see who is our return guest. Because so far it's only been one. We've only had like just one person. I wouldn't be surprised if December comes around, Corey goes, I'll take another month.
Yeah. Well, since you got all these people who want to do the show.
Yeah. No, Corey will come back. Hopefully. But no, yeah, so I mean, I think so. This is our plug here at the end of the show that we do. This is our live read. Like Shawn said with his show, that they're supported. They've got enough money to keep the bills on. Galactic Netcast, same way. Everyone here at Galactic Netcast is volunteer, or Galactic Network is volunteer basis. So that that includes me, myself, B, doing our shows. And if you want to help us out, you want to help, keep the lights on here. You can help us out by going to our Patreon, patreon.com/Galactic Netcast, I believe is the link there, or just going to gncast.com/support. And then the other way, the easier way, is the Amazon fulfillment, or the Amazon portal there. You go through our website, you go to the Amazon store, and boom, everything you buy there, it doesn't matter. It's not just limited to you see the 9 things on the screen there. It's whatever you buy. A small percentage of that goes to us to help us keep the lights on. And hey, we got Black Friday coming up here in America. They're doing all the deals and stuff. What better way? You're taking more money from Amazon and giving it to us. That's awesome. And if you want to contact us, you can contact us in a couple ways. One is by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966, or emailing us mail@elsenerds.com. I encourage the emails and the calls because I read and listen to all that stuff. And then all subscription options can be found under gncast.com/subscribe, including, I think, the way to get into our Slack channel is on there as well with on there. And you can leave us, or you can join our Facebook page at Galactic Network. You could follow myself, or you can follow the show on Twitter at ElseNerds, and then the network at Galactic Netcasts. And you can follow Beat and Corey and Evan on Twitter, Beatmasters at Beatmaster80. Evan, our other producers, at Mr_Fusion. Corey, you can find him at Don't Ask Comics. Shawn, where can they find you on Twitter?
About the only place I am is at Trivia Geek Show, as I usually run the Trivia Geeks Twitter, so that's where I'm most active.
All right. And you can find me at that Gregor. And the last thing to say is this has been a Don't Tell Glenn production. We will see you guys next week.
Or else.